Hey backpackers, this is Juan from On Backpacks, and I'm here today to talk about my backcountry fly fishing kit that I'll be taking with me when I thru-hike the Uinta Highline just in a few weeks from now. This lightweight, all-encompassing, 100% guaranteed to catch trout in the high country, because I've used it many times, only weighs in at exactly 7 ounces. So that's pretty good. That's under a half a pound of gear to be able to fly fish with success in the backcountry. How do I know that? Well, I've been in the Sierra many times with this kit, caught plenty of fish every single time I've gone. I was a fishing guide for about 15 years. So I think I might know a little bit about fishing and what it takes to catch some fishes. So I'm gonna go over my kit with you. It's very simple, to be honest with you. And really that's the key in the backcountry, keeping things very simple, yet making sure that what you've got is going to be effective in terms of the tools, in terms of the gear, in terms of the flies that you're gonna be taking into the backcountry. So let's take a look. First of all, I'm just gonna take like a quick overview here. This is the bag that contains all of my fly fishing gear that I need in the backcountry. And this weighs 3.5 ounces total with everything that's in here, which I'm gonna talk about. 3.5 ounces total. This is the tenkara rod that I'm gonna be using, and it's from Dragon Tail Tenkara. I believe this one, I'm gonna look, because I've got a couple of these. This is like the really small packable one. It's called the Talon, it's Talon Mini. So you can see it's pretty darn small. And this weighs 3.5 ounces with the cover. I typically don't take the hard case with me, but I do take this because I want to keep dust and grime out of the inside of the telescoping tenkara rod. And so I like to take the cover with me. So I'm going to kind of set this aside. Well, no, let's not set this aside. Let's talk about the tenkara rod first. This is a fly fishing rod, basically. It's a Japanese style of fly fishing that originated obviously in Japan. It's very simple and very effective. It was actually tenkara fishing was originated by commercial fly fishing commercial fishermen in the mountains of Japan. They used to fish and sell their fish. Like this is like way back in the day. So I'm not talking about like, commercial as we say it, now in the modern days. And so it's a very simple rod. It's just a telescoping rod, and it's got a tip where you actually tie the line right to the end of the rod. And so it's a fixed line. And so you'll see that when I go to my gear, but it uses a fixed line that you just cast like this. It's really simple. Lift, cast, just like that. And this one telescopes out to 12 feet. So you're literally talking about something that's under a foot long here. And it telescopes out to 12 feet. Just take the cap off, pull out here, show you how to do it. Take the cap off. This is not a tenkara how to fly fish thing, but it's got a lily on the end that you connect the fixed line to. Very, very fragile tip on it, but once it's extended and you're catching fish with it, you can catch huge fish on it. You can see how I'm extending this out. It'll go out to 12 feet. Now I'm gonna push everything back in, put the little cork on the bottle here, so to speak, and then put the tip protector on here, and I'm all set. And I've got my I'll call it a dust cover, a sock, just to keep it in order. This is only 3.5 ounces, extremely effective. I've caught really big trout on this, just fishing in my home waters of Pennsylvania. Very confident in this. You'll use a level line on these types of rods, anywhere from 8, 10, 12, 13 feet, something like that. The level line I typically fish with this is about 10 foot of a braided level line, or a braided line, not a level line, but a braided line, and then about another 3 to 5 foot of tippet, like just a monofilament line off the end that's clear to tie the fly to, and that's very effective. So that's the tenkara rod, 3.5 ounces. This is the entire fly fishing kit. It weighs 3.5 ounces total. That's everything here. All this is a small bag made out, I think it's like some kind of what's called Z pack or pack something or other. And it was made by Backcountry Exposure. And this was actually made red because it was supposed to be like maybe a first aid kit or something like that. But it's super light, and I actually just tied this on. It's just a very, very thin guy line, basically, that I bought for one of my ultralight tents. And you just can put it over here like this while you're fishing, and you have all your gear right here. You just unzip it, and you can access all your gear. So let's take a look what all your gear really means. Let's take a look inside here. Again, very simple, very simple. Couple of tools. One is I always bring some kind of nippers or clippers with me, and these are just some basic fishing nippers, and I don't use like the retractor on here or anything like that, like the little cord that retracts. I just keep the nippers separate, so we got nippers here. I've got some floatant for dry flies, high float. It's just a coating that you basically, like you rub it onto a dry fly to further waterproof it so it stays floating longer. And so I like to put this on because it just makes that coating so that the hair that you use for your dry flies doesn't absorb water as quickly, and it'll stay floating higher and longer before you have to dry it out and get it, because it'll eventually get like soggy and start to sink. But this definitely makes the fly float longer and better and higher. So I always take this with me. You could probably forego this, but it's just like less messing around with my flies trying to dry them out. And so I always take this with me when I'm in the backcountry. The other thing I take with me is a small, tiny set of forceps here. And that's just so that if I catch a trout and it takes a hook deeper inside, or I want to release it without touching the trout, and just grab the hook with this and then just take the hook out of the trout's mouth like that, just using this, and while the fish is dangling in the water, I can do that. And so hook swallows, or even just quick releases where you don't want to lift the trout out of the water, you can do that with the forceps. The other thing that comes along with tenkara fly fishing are two things. One is the level line or the braided line that you use on the end of the lilian, the actual line you're using to cast the fly. And that's usually braided. On one side here, I have a 10-foot braided line, and these plastic cards are only less than an ounce. They're just like fractions of an ounce. And so I use these, and you can wind it on these little tabs. It's better than using like a plastic spool, which is heavier. These are thinner and easier to pack. So I've got braided line on one side, it's 10 foot. And on the other side, I've got a 12-foot level line. That's basically like a monofilament that's very thick. It's like 3.5 millimeters. And so it's very strong breaking strength, but again, it's a heavier line that you can use to cast the light, almost weightless fly. And so that's one of the key things. Now on the end of these lines, since you can see how they're big, you can't really tie a fly directly to them. You need something that is 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 feet long sometimes. It's clear line coming off of that level line, or coming off of that braided line, the thicker level line or braided line. And so I just use basic tippet material, monofilament. I'm using 5X monofilament, which is heavy enough for the type of fishing we'll be doing in the high country. And so basically this is the tippet that goes on the end of the level line, or goes on the end of the braided line that you use in tenkara fly fishing. The last thing that I'll talk about are the flies. And I gotta be honest with you, fly fishing in the backcountry is about as easy as it gets when you're in a place where fish, don't have much time to feed during the year, when the ice is off, the snow is off in the high country. I'm talking about the Sierras, probably the Rockies, high mountain rocky creeks. Never been there fly fishing, hopefully one of these days, or the Uintas. And so you really don't have to have a large selection of flies, but what you want to do is make sure you have flies that float, right? Surface flies. Then you want to have some flies that sink and drift under the surface. And those flies that drift under the surface are called nymphs. The flies, and this is just very simplistic. There are other types of flies. I know that there are wet flies and there are streamers and things like that, but I want to keep this very simple. Flies above the surface that lay on the surface are going to be dry flies. Flies that are below the surface are going to be nymphs. They're going to like imitate those bugs that swim under the water, live under the rocks, that eventually hatch into flies that come up on the surface. So let's take a look at, I've got 4 compartments, a very light plastic, simple plastic box that's got some waterproof, gasket around it. I got these on Amazon, super cheap, because I was doing like a fly fishing or fly tying class, and I wanted to give away some free boxes when I was doing it. And so these are the ones I picked out for the kids. But you can see in here I've got some flies. Really, again, I've got 2 sections over here that are dry flies on this side, and then I've got some subsurface flies over here. I'm just gonna put in some flies that I've used across, really from here to the West Coast fly fishing and in the backcountry. One of my most productive flies in the backcountry is just as simple as elk-haired caddis, and I tie them in size 16s and 12s. You can tie them in 14s. I like 12s because they're bigger, and I find that in the backcountry, just a big, obnoxious dry fly is better than anything. And so I've got a bunch of these elk-haired caddis in here. I've probably got about a dozen of them in this little square over here, and that again is my go-to. I've never had that let me down, to be completely honest with you. And then over in this side, I've got some foam dry flies. I've got these very small, tiny black ant dry flies I tied out of a little tubular foam. And then I've got some other kind of almost grasshopper type foam flies with legs. And so I like to have some foam flies because they make it easier to stay afloat. If I get tired of the elk hairs sinking maybe after a while, I can be like, okay, I'm gonna switch to a foam. And foam's nice because it floats all the time. You don't have to worry about it sinking. And then over here on this side, these 2 chambers, I've got some real basic wet flies. One of them is actually a tenkara fly that I tie, and I'm not certain of the name of this one, but it's really just a simple, almost like a caddisy looking thing with like a big fuzzy collar on it that waves in the current, and it's a subsurface fly. I've got a little bit of weight. I've got a green these are called greeny weenies. So they look like almost caddises. They work about everywhere under the earth, on the surface of the earth. I've got some other larval type flies here. Got some flies that have some hackle on them, some nymphs with hackle. You might not be able to see those, but they're really simple flies. But the thing is, the key is here to remember, it's like, keep it simple. Your subsurface flies can be, pheasant tails is a great choice in size 14, 16, or 12. It could be hare's ears, size 12, 14, or 16. The greeny weenie flies that a lot of people will tie. Elk-haired caddis again is great imitator of all kinds of things on the surface, and then has some foam stuff too, a little bit of foam. And so those are the flies I'm going to be taking. My son and I are going to use this box and all this gear. We should have a lot of success. One of our goals is actually to catch not only some of those high country rainbow trout. I think they've got brook trout up there, probably some brown trout maybe, I don't know. Definitely rainbows and brooks, but also I hear through good sources that they have Arctic grayling in the high country in the High Line. So that, quite honestly, is one of my bucket list fish. And so I've never caught a grayling before, and so we will definitely be in search of grayling when we head out there too. So that is my fly fishing kit for the backcountry. I really am confident in this kit. I have used it many, many, many times. There's some variations of this kit when I'm backpacking. And honestly, in the backcountry, it's all that I've ever felt that I've needed. I've never felt underprepared, to be honest with you, to be able to catch some fish in the backcountry. And so hopefully this information is going to help you, whether you're backpacking in the Uinta Highline or any other backcountry area where this type of gear would be easy to carry in a backpack and effective when you're fishing. So till next time, backpackers, get out there and do some backpacking, do some hiking, stop watching YouTube videos, unless they're mine, and watch them all from start to finish. Later, backpackers.